Hello guys, hello everyone. This video I wanted to show you certain things about how to basically understand a birth chart. Give everyone a quick preview as to how we see a birth chart, right? This is basically what it's called a Kundali. You see this diagram right here is called a Kundali. These all are houses, right? Now, irrespective of the number written here in any application that you see, this will always be the first house. This will always be the first house. This will always be the second house, third house, fourth house, fifth house, sixth house, seventh house, eighth house, ninth house, 10th house, 11th, and 12th house. You have to understand that even if I write 5 here or I write 10 here, this does not change the fact that this is your first house. The number that's written over there is basically what your ascendant is. This number basically means that this was the sign that was rising when you were born, making this the rising sort of sign of your birth chart. This is your ascendant house. Now, just sort of to be able to present a better picture, let's assume this house to be of one, what do you call? Basically, I'll have to assume an ascendant over here. Let me assume this as Leo ascendant, right? If this is a Leo ascendant, which means Leo sign was rising on the east when you were born, the number that's going to be written over here is 5. Doesn't make this the fifth house, it makes it the fifth sign. It's always the first house. This is fifth, so this is the sixth sign, seventh sign, eighth, ninth, and I'll fill it all the way. Now, when we study the birth chart, this is an empty chart right now. The first house, second house, all have their own significations, irrespective of these numbers written over here. The first house in itself always shows you. It shows your personality traits, how you look, how you appear to be. The second house is always about your finances, your health. Not your health, but your ego, your, what do you call, it's about the resources, it's about your voice, how you speak, it's about the luxury you have because it's the original sign of Taurus. Seventh sign, Libra, is in the third house. Third house is what? Is the house of your communication. It's the house of how you communicate, your siblings, the analytical or logical skills a person has, all are seen through the third house. Fourth house is the house of your mother, it's the house of your property, it's the house of your home, your mental peace, mental balance. It's the house of your motherland, the place at which you were born. Fifth house. Fifth house is the house of your children, your progeny. It's the house of romance, it's the house of speculation, it's the house of your children, it's the house of your education, it's the house of your ego, confidence. Sixth house. Sixth house is the house of your enemies. It's called as Rogue, Rin, Shatru. Basically meaning any illness, any debt, and any enemy all come under the purview of the sixth house. Seventh house. Seventh house is the house of your marriage. Seventh house is the house of your spouse. If you see, it's the house right opposite to you. So whatever you are, this is everyone else. This house is you, and this house is everyone else. Eighth house is the house of your in-laws. Eighth house is the house of secrets. It's the house of mysteries. It's the house of things you don't want other people to do, to see, to think. It's also the house of chronic illnesses. It's the house of insurance, research, PhD, all that stuff. Ninth house. Ninth house is basically the house of your father. The tenth house is also the house of father. So is the ninth house. If we see the ninth house also talks about your guru. Ninth house is about your higher education. If you go for a master's or a PhD, that's seen through the ninth house. Ninth house is also the house of long distance travels. Um, Ninth house is the house of dharma. It's ruled by Guru, Jupiter, right? And even though you see, I have written 1 over here, which means the Rashi here for you is 1, which means Mars rules your ninth house. But ninth house originally is always ruled by Jupiter. So for you, or for this birth chart, Jupiter and Mars, both energies will synergize in order to give results. 10th house is the house of your career, it's the house of your public image, it's the house of your, like I said, father, it's the house of how the society at large sees you. It's the house of karma, because this is originally the sign of Capricorn, right? You have to remember, the only reason I'm making this video is that every house has two things: the original sign and ruler, plus the chart sign and ruler. Original for the 10th house would be Saturn, Capricorn. For this birth chart, it's Venus, Taurus. Both these energies will be combined for me to assess the condition of the 10th house. I'll have to see Saturn, but I'll also see Venus. Also understand the fact that where Saturn is placed and where Venus is placed, this will give me the entire story, and their placement in D9, final say. That has the final say on the strength of the planet. 11th house. 11th house is what? 11th house is the house of gains. 11th house is the house of your social circle. 11th house is the house of your professional circle. It's the house of your popularity, fame. It's the house of society at large, people at large, large public groups. It's also the house of social media. It's the house of gains. It's the house of income. I said second house, this is the house of wealth. 11th house is the house of income. Income comes in if 11th house is strong, but it will go out just as easily if the second house is not. And if 11th house is weak, it could be that income is non-existent or it's very less, but you've inherited a lot of wealth. So wealth keeps on rising. You see how it works? And finally, the 12th house. 12th house is what? 12th house is the house of moksha. It's the house of end. Every logic, ego, money, communication, mother, father, education, romance, enemies, debt, marriage, in-laws, research, PhD, stuff like that. Then you come to the 9th house, father, higher education, travel, 10th house, your image in the society, what people will think, what people will say, what people will do. 11th house, the house of money, income, popularity, gains. Everything comes here and it ends. Every single thing will come here and it'll end. That's the 12th house. 12th house is the house of surrender. It's also the house of foreign lands, foreign travel. It's the house of basically, if you see here, originally the sign that rules is Pisces. When Pisces energies are there, Venus is exalted. Guru rules this house originally. Venus is exalted over here, and Mercury is debilitated. Both the gurus, the Deva Guru and Daitya Guru, one rules this house, another one is exalted here. And Mercury, the planet of logic, is debilitated over here. What does that tell you? That here logic fails. Here there is, where there is moksha, where there is the end, no logic would work here. Correct? I'll just take a brief moment to sort of clean up this entire thing that I've done. And now I'd like to go on and talk about a special concept called Arudha Lagna. The reason I wanted to make this video was to explain Arudha Lagna, but I'm given to understand that a lot of people don't have enough clarity on how to read a birth chart itself. They are really interested in understanding and learning about astrology, but these basics are unfortunately overlooked by most people when they make videos. Everyone is going to make a video on how to sort of see transits and Sade Sati and the main transits that invoke fear in other people, but rarely do they take up an opportunity to help assess basically the basic concepts. Okay, getting back to the topic at hand, what is Arudha Lagna? Arudha Lagna is your image in front of the society. Arudha Lagna is, if I were to see a person, just give me a second. If I were to see a practical stranger walking out of the car in front of me, what would I think of them? What would I think of that person? That first impression of that person, even before I see them, I know them. I don't know how wealthy they are. I don't know how much they earn. I don't know if they're married or not, how well educated they are. All these things. I don't know anything about them. But what is that first thing that a stranger thinks about you? That's what Arudha Lagna is. Okay, now the chart looks nice. Arudha Lagna. Arudha Lagna is that first impression any person would get if they were to see you. Not, they don't know anything about you. What do they think about you? What kind of an impression do you give? That is what Arudha Lagna is. So in this chart, the ascendant lord is sun. Let's say sun is placed in 1 2 3 4 5 houses away in the 5th house in the sign of Sagittarius. If the ascendant lord is placed 5 houses away from the ascendant, we're going to count 5 houses from the 5th house. So that's 1 2 3 4 5. This becomes the Arudha Lagna. This is the Arudha Lagna of this birth chart. So if I were to rotate this entire chart and make this house the ascendant, read this chart from here, I will see how this person would appear to a practical stranger. How would a person who does not know them think about them? That's what Arudha Lagna basically is, the impression you give to someone who does not know you. I'll quickly clean this up and I'll explain it in detail. I'll take a sample chart so that everything becomes very clear. Keep in mind that Arudha Lagna works on both static and dynamic elements. Static is basically the birth chart you're born with. So for this person, ninth house becomes their Arudha Lagna. So if they have a planet in the ninth house, that planet will always be a part of how they appear to people, irrespective of anything. But when another planet is transiting through that sign, the sign of Mars, Aries, then that sign becomes active. Then that planet also sort of starts reflecting in this person's personality. So, just to give a quick recap, this person was a Leo ascendant and Sun was here in the ninth house. So, we counted and we calculated that this house, the ninth house with the sign of Aries, became their Arudha Lagna. If I were to transpose the birth chart and make this house the ascendant, it would look something like this. Correct? I'll study this chart from here now. Let's say they had Saturn in the ninth house. Saturn in the ninth house would do what? Might give certain amount of delay or some complication in higher education, some disagreements with the father, a different uh, faith system or belief system than the norm. And Saturn also makes you a bit rebellious, so you are willing to and want to ask questions that why is it that just because we do this we are supposed to do it? What the society believes at large is something you're not very happy with, you're settled with. When Saturn is here and we transpose the birth chart, so this becomes the Arudha Lagna. This is where Saturn is now. This person would appear to be very humble. This person would appear to be someone who's who has a different belief system. This person would appear to be someone who's very and remember, the Rashi over here is that of Mars. Saturn is debilitated here. So this basically either shows that this person is quite stingy with money, or they are under enormous stress for some reason. This person is very disciplined, very loyal, because those are the very good qualities of Saturn. But it could also show that this person has confidence issues, because Saturn in the sign of Aries, when Saturn is debilitated, could give you issues with confidence. Let's take another example. Assume, for instance, that this chart is um, let's say Gemini rising, right? If this is the sign of Gemini, then here is the sign of Sagittarius. Let's say this being the sign of Capricorn. Let's say Mercury has gone in this house. If you were to calculate from the ascendant, this becomes the 8th house. So let's calculate from the 8th house 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This, the 3rd house, becomes the 8th house from the 8th house. So this sign, the sign of Leo, becomes the Arudha Lagna for this birth chart. Let's say there is Sun here, and let's say that just opposite to this, here in the sign of Aquarius, there is Venus, right? Again, we have to study this house. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make this house as the ascendant house, the 3rd house as the ascendant house. Now if you were to study the birth chart from this house, this is how this person would appear to anyone who does not know them and sees them a stranger, a practical stranger. What does this show you now? This basically shows me fifth sign, sun is in his own house, making a person very confident, which might not actually be true because Mercury has gone into the 8th house in the sign of Saturn. But from the looks of it, this person looks very confident, charming, and Venus is right opposite, right? So just in the 7th house, Venus sits, and Venus makes this person look very attractive, very, charming. So even though, and this is the entire beauty of it, right? You don't know anything about this person. It could be that almost all the planets this person has are debilitated or very weak, but still, from the looks of it, just from the looks of it, you will assume that this person, oh my god, this person is, very confident. He's or she's very good looking, and all this stuff. So that's the beauty of Arudha Lagna. Excuse me. So this pretty much is the video for today. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you.